Hello, everybody joining tonight, and for those of you who are going to be watching the replay. My name is Lena Lassiter, and I am the founder and president of Forever Healed, and we are a nonprofit, and what we do is we aim to assist those with broken hearts to end their pain and reclaim their lives forever. This is done in several ways, to include grief recovery classes licensed by the Grief Recovery Method Institute. We offer one-on-one and group grief recovery classes, and we also educate corporate on the hidden costs of grief in the workplace through lunch and learns and seminars. We also offer helping children with loss programs to school systems to help counselors who are dealing with children and educators. So thank you for joining me tonight. Please let me know that you are joining. Again, I'm Lena Lassiter with Forever Healed. And tonight we are going to be talking about grief in the LGBTQ community. So I want this to be a safe place for us to have this conversation. No judgment zone here. So let's get the conversation started. Again, let me know that you're here and that you're watching. Hi, Tanya. Thank you for joining me tonight. So again, for those who just joined, Lena Lassiter with Forever Healed. And tonight we are going to be talking about grief in the LGBT community. So thank you all who have joined. Chastity, hi Chastity, nice to see you. Thank you for joining. Chastity is our vice president. So thank you all for joining. I promise you I won't hold you long. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the grief and loss associated with those in the LGBTQ community. So ordinary, uncomplicated grief it's healthy, it's normal, and it's an appropriate reaction to a loss of any kind. So that's ordinary, uncomplicated grief is healthy, it's normal, and it's how we grieve, right? So grief is also the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern or behavior. So unresolved grief is almost always about, guys, things that we wish we have done differently, better, or more. Sometimes we say, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? Unresolved grief is also about unrealized hopes, dreams, and expectations that we had for relationships. So even in the best of relationships, we are often left with plans that never happen. So I want you to keep those definitions in mind when we have our conversation tonight about grief and loss experienced by those in the LGBTQ community, as well as their families. Okay, so while there seems to be more acceptance towards those who identify as lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender or queer, many people still have negative feelings towards individuals who live openly as LGBTQ. So for those who are bold enough to present to the world that they are gay and lesbian, they are subjected to criticism and rejection by family, by friends, sometimes by co-workers. And then there are others who choose to keep their homosexuality hidden, right? And this could lead to mental problems. This could lead to mental problems such as anxiety. It could also lead to mental problems such as depression. So they have to lie to those who they care about at times, right? So they have to lie to their employers because they are afraid that they won't get a promotion. They have to lie to their friends because they feel like they may be rejected. Sometimes they have to lie to their family members because of the expectations put on them by, certain family members. So the process of having to lie all the time, like to their employers, this duplicity leads to negative feelings. So the process of even coming out or sharing their identities with others could be a precursor to a crisis event, depending upon the reactions from others. So I wanted to just share real quick that suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth between the ages of 10 and 20. However, keep this in mind. If the youth identifies as lesbian, as gay, as bisexual, then they are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide. That just blew my mind. This population faces a higher amount of discrimination, hate crimes, and violence. And as stated earlier, they are faced with other unique losses, right? So, such as the possibility of rejection from their family and their friends. And this can cause further isolation. It can cause further hurt. It can cause further anger, depression, and disappointment. So we talked earlier about unrealized hopes and dreams and expectations that we have for relationships in terms of unresolved grief. So think about it like this, right? So some family members, so let's just say it's a parent and their child has come out to them and said that they're gay. So that family member may have had expectations of that child getting married, right? Having children, but it was their hopes, it was their dreams, it was their expectations, right? That they would marry someone of the opposite sex. So, and then if the individual identifies as bisexual, sometimes the family member may hold on to the hope that their child will still end up with someone of the opposite sex, right? So again, the mother's hopes or expectations that the child will be married and have, children, or a father who, wants this athletic son and, married to a female, right? So they have all these hopes and expectations and these dreams. So the families may grieve that. So I want you guys to know that it is twofold. So we talked about grief as being conflicting. So some individuals will question their faith even during this time, right? So whether or not God loves them based on expectations from others. So they have to also deal with that, right? So just think about all of those things, this compounding that they have to deal with, right? So this is right within their family and their friends. But think about the world who doesn't know them on a personal level, and then they're discriminated against, and then there are crimes against them. Right? So how do we support the LGBTQ community? What can we do to support this community? So let's just talk about that for a little while. And please ask questions. Again, I won't be on here very long. I just want to bring awareness to this topic tonight. We're going to keep this conversation going this month because this is Pride Awareness Month. So I want to talk about grief and loss in the LGBT community. So what can we do? How do we support this community? The first thing, don't assume, number one, that someone is lesbian or gay, right? You want to create a positive environment that they can come in their own time and share in their own time. So don't just assume and try to force, a conversation out of them. Also, for those who have shared, remember that you had the time to process your feelings. So if you came out to your family members and they didn't immediately respond in a manner in which you would have liked them to respond, I want you to consider this. You had time to, and maybe it was years, right, to kind of struggle with your feelings, to come in terms with your feelings, to process your feelings. You may have struggled with it, or maybe not. But I just ask that you extend your family members the same grace, right? And the same time that you had to kind of process your feelings and your emotions with what was going on with you. And then for families, it's important to know that you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to agree with it. Regardless of an individual's sexual orientation or their gender identity, we are commissioned to love. We're commissioned to love. They are still your daughter. They're still your son. That's still your cousin. That's still your mother, your father, your friend, your coworker. They are more than their sexual orientation. They are more than their gender identity. Okay? So just because you are accepting them for who they are, that's still a child that you have given birth to, a sibling that you have grown up with, a friend that you have always known. So don't just identify them based on their sexual orientation or their gender identity. You don't have to agree. I see a comment. That's a good point. I think I could have been more gracious of that part. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for even joining us. I appreciate that. And I think you're talking about the point, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, about how long it takes sometimes, right, for you to kind of process it and sometimes fight it. Sometimes you're fighting it. You're trying to fight whatever's going on with you because you're trying to live up to the expectations, right, of others. So just remember that your family, they have to go through the same amount of time, sometimes or even longer. So just keep that in mind. So thank you. Hi, Patricia. Thank you for joining us. All right. So again, how do we support the LGBTQ community? So that's what we're talking about right now. We talked about don't assume that anyone is lesbian or gay. You want to create a positive atmosphere or an environment in which they can share in their own time. Number two, for those who have shared, remember the time to process, right? So again, you had to have time to process your feelings, your emotions. You may have struggled with what's going on with you. So give your family that same time to deal with their emotions and their struggle, right? Also, you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to agree with it. So again, regardless of an individual's sexual orientation, their gender identity, we are commissioned to love. I'm out here tonight talking about love. They're still your daughter. They're still your son. It's still your cousin. It's still your friend. It's still your coworker outside of that identity. Don't just put them in a box and say, they're only this person regarding their gender identity, or they're only this person regarding their sexual orientation. We don't look at other people that way. So you don't have to agree with it. I see another comment. So let's go to the comment. Hi, Don. Thank you for joining tonight. I appreciate you being here. And then number 4, we want to provide a safe, non-judgmental space for sharing. If you can't talk about their sexual orientation or their gender identity and you're not comfortable with it, share resources that will allow them a safe place to express their feelings. You may also need educational resources to help you because you may need some education around, again, your thoughts, right? And how you are processing the information. So you want to make sure that we provide a safe, non-judgmental space for sharing. Also, the support can't be dismissive. You have to listen with the intent of understanding their concerns and feelings. And one of the hardest things for LGBT people to face is rejection. It's rejection. So if we're not listening and we're being dismissive of what they're trying to communicate, and it's not easy. It's not easy because they have a fear of being rejected. And then if we're being dismissive, then they don't feel valued. They don't feel loved. They don't feel supported. And again, support doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. You have to put your personal feelings and your agenda aside. And then lastly, counseling or grief recovery may be warranted if you are having a tough time navigating through, your emotional pain. So I wanted to get on here tonight. Again, this is Pride Month. I wanted to talk about the grief and loss that may be experienced by the LGBT community. I wanted to talk about what grief is and to understand, again, it's not about someone just dying, right? So grief could be that expectation of a relationship. And we see this a lot with this community. This community, they're grieving the loss sometimes of their family, their blood family, because some of them have been rejected, right? So my expectations of having my parents or my siblings or my uncles or my cousins or my friends, in my life for this period of time and always being supportive, sometimes they lose that. And that's that familiar pattern, right? So I just wanted to talk about this tonight. So we can have other things to consider as well, right? To kind of look at our own biases and be open to being compassionate, being open to showing love, again, outside of someone's, how they identify sexually, or their identity. We're going to have more discussions, more robust discussions around this topic all month. I'm excited to say that on June 21st, our guest speaker is going to be Patrick Dunn, and he is the executive director of the New Haven Pride Center in Connecticut. So he's going to come on and talk and share some things with us. So it looks like we have another comment. Let's go. Miss Pat said, so right, it's all about not judging, but love. Yes. Yeah. What other questions do you guys have for me tonight? Again, a safe, non-judgmental place. What other questions do you have for me tonight? Let's talk about it. Let's not be afraid to talk about it. And you're right, Miss Pat. Yes, we have to show love. Any further questions? All right. So remember that the LGBT community, they suffer grief and loss, not only behind the expectations of relationship, they suffer grief and loss behind crimes, hate crimes, bullying for the children, right? So they are subjected to just more hate, than some of us. So you think about that on top of those, again, who they haven't come out, and that can cause more mental anguish because they're living this lie and pretending every day because they're afraid of losing their jobs, losing relationships, afraid of being rejected. So I just want you guys, again, to just kind of understand that, comprehend that, so that we can show compassion and that we can show love in our walk towards all. All right, here's a question. What age do you think is right for someone to say they are transgender? Tanya, I don't know if I necessarily have an age that I say, that I think is right or wrong, because I have spoken with a lot of clients who have said, they were in elementary school and they just didn't feel, a certain way. Like they just didn't feel like a little boy, or they didn't feel like a little girl. But what I'm doing, Tanya, is I'm helping them deal with their grief and their loss, right, regarding rejection, their grief and their loss, a lot of times behind, loss of family members and loss of friends. So even when counseling and educating this group and helping them through crisis situations, because guess what, when they're rejected, that's a precursor for a crisis situation, especially if the conversation didn't go as they had planned. So all this to say, I don't go in with a preconceived notion to say, well, I don't think that, they should feel this way, at that particular age, because, I don't know, but I do know that the clients that we serve, some of them have said, I felt this way, in elementary school, and who am I to say that they didn't? So hopefully that answered your question. What advice would you give someone who has a hard time accepting their LGBT child due to religious reasons? Is there a key to being able to love your gay child and be religious at the same time? A great question, because I feel like the Bible tells us that we should love, right? So even if you look at it, Mike, as a sin, and we say, hey, this is a sin, but the Bible teaches us that you love the sinner and you don't have to agree, with the sin. I think, again, this is the conflicting feelings that come, right, with the grief and the loss, because sometimes the parents are feeling like, well, gosh, this is my belief and this is my faith. And now I have a child who's, living a life contrary to, what I believe and what scripture says. So they have to go through that struggle, Mike, sometimes, just trying to fight, those feelings and those emotions. And believe it or not, they're going through their own grief, around that, because now sometimes some parents are even questioning, oh my gosh, is what I believe in, was it right? And if it's right, if I choose to continue to love my child, am I denouncing my faith? You can have both. You can have both. I love the Lord with all of my heart and my soul. And because I love the Lord, I love his people, all his people. And to say I can't love someone because of who and what they choose to identify with, and then we start putting sin in boxes, right? Well, I can forgive this one over here gossiping and backbiting and doing this, but I can't forgive and have a relationship with this one who identifies as lesbian or gay or transgender. No, I just choose to love all. So I would just say, give the parents some time, because they're probably struggling with their own emotions and their own faith and their own beliefs, right? Their own loss. But if they're Christians, they're going to just love regardless, because that's still their child. That's still their son. That's still their daughter. That's still their niece. That's still their nephew. Regardless. We have to love. We have to love. We have to love. And we have to remember that the love conquers. So that's the key. So I would, in this circumstance, I would recommend the child continue, to love. The parents just continue to love. And like I said earlier, we don't have to agree. Right? Think of all the other things that we don't agree with when it comes to our children. So to me, this is no different. Would you love a child who was on drugs and drinking heavily? Absolutely. So it shouldn't be a difference, to me. I have heard from a pediatric nurse that many do feel they are in elementary school and or by the age of 12. Yes, Colleen, yeah. A lot of clients have said that in elementary school that they felt, different. So again, I, don't judge or put my personal biases on them, or, try to make them believe what I believe. My heart is for their hearts that are hurting. My compassion is for the losses that they are suffering. My heart is for the discrimination that they face. My heart is for the crimes against them because of, the decisions that they made. That's my heart. That's my compassion. How do you talk to someone who is suicidal? Well, first of all, if someone says that they're suicidal, the first thing I want you guys to realize is to take it seriously. Like, a lot of times we dismiss or think that people are just, saying something. So the first key is to take it seriously. Let them talk through their emotions. And then there's a national, suicide number. You can even call to have a welfare check, for that individual. But just let them speak. And again, let them talk about what's going on with them, because a lot of times they just need to talk, in a safe place, because a lot of times they don't have that safe, environment to express themselves, because so many people want to put their biases on them. So they kind of shut down. So if you have someone who's, coming to you and they're saying that they're suicidal, take it seriously, listen, and ask them if they need you to go with them, to a hospital, to seek medical attention. So, but again, the first key is to listen and take it seriously in a non-judge, free zone. So don't say things like, you're not going to kill yourself, or, you're just talking crazy. No, take it seriously. Let them express themselves. Ask them why. Why are they feeling that way? And listen for the response. And whatever the response is, that's what you act on, right? So how strong is this urge? Well, I just feel like, tonight I just want to go take some pills and, just end it. well, then they need some immediate assistance, some immediate help. So thank you for the questions. Any other questions tonight? Thank you guys for joining and being open to this topic. I really appreciate it. Great questions tonight. Any other comments? Well, I hope that this session tonight, again, I told you I was going to be on here really quickly and provide you with some quick tips, some helpful tips. If you know anyone that could benefit from, this video, again, please make sure that you share, that you like it. We will be back in a couple of weeks, and we're gonna have more in-depth conversation around this topic. I see another comment. Hang on one second. As I got older, the song "He's Got the Whole World in His Hand" too, on the entire world, right? All of us, all of us. Tanya, you are welcome. I appreciate you joining tonight. So share this video. If you haven't gotten a free e-guide to our grief recovery program, you can do that at our website, www.foreverheal.com. It's just tools that you can use while going through grief. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. I want you to continue to walk in love and compassion. We're going to be talking again on the 21st with Patrick Dunn, the Executive Director of the New Haven Pride Center. So we're going to have a more robust conversation around this topic. But tonight, I just wanted to give you some definitions of grief for this community to understand what they may be going through and what they might be feeling, and to let them know that we are going to walk in love and support them. I want you guys to have a peaceful night rest, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. And if there are topics regarding grief and loss that you would like us to discuss, let us know. So send us a message, and we can make sure that we are tackling all the topics that you're interested as well. So have a wonderful night, a peaceful rest, and we will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thank you.